everybody, welcome back to That Fiction Life. Today I'm sharing with you a list of books that will blow your mind. To receive that very special 5 out of 5 stars, a book needs to have plot twists. And the books that we'll be talking about today broke my soul in so many ways, and it's those books that will make you want to throw it across the room. They're that surprising. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, make sure to hit the button below because we talk about books, movies and TV shows. A lot of these books have in-depth book talks on my channel, so I will link those below if you would like further information. I also have interviews with some of these authors, so I'm going to put that in the description below as well. Now without further ado, let's begin. The first book is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is one of my favourite books of all time because never has a book had such a unique concept. Now, in a little bit of a turn of events, we have a book in a utopian setting, which means that humanity have perfected everything. They have even figured out how to make themselves immortal. However, populations do still need to be controlled, and so they have these beings called scythes who glean people, and they are practically trained in death, and they have this special quota that they need to fill up, and they use probabilities. And the story follows these two apprentices who have been chosen to become scythes. And the plot goes to so many dark places because, as you can imagine, this job role requires a lot of ethics, thinking about morals, and as with any job, there are a lot of corrupt scythes. And so we encounter so many dark plot twists in this story. Honestly, there's no time to really breathe and take it in. I didn't know what to do with myself because you were tricked so many times. I will never forget this book because the experience of reading it was so chaotic. Neal is a master at plotting, and I think with this series, for the first time in my life, the characters were not the key focus for me because the plot was so good and so intricate and very, very unique. For book number 2, no one will be surprised if you have been on my channel for a little while, and that is Wicked King by Holly Black. This is a sequel. Scythe was book number 1 in its series, but the way I'm picking these books is genuinely whichever book in a series blew my mind. And for the Cruel Prince series, it was this one. My review of this book was the most chaotic, unhinged, kind of a little bit unstable video. I mean, genuinely, here's a clip. This book made me die. Let's be real, I am no longer here. You are seeing a ghost. First, let me tell you about the plot because I'm getting ahead of myself here. We follow Jude, who has lived amongst the Fae all of her life because her sort of stepfather murdered both of her parents. Now, Jude has been brought up by a kind of murderous lord, so you can imagine she doesn't have the most pure thoughts. And the same goes for her love interest. They are both a little bit damaged, and that is my favourite part of this series. But this book especially is on this list because your mind will truly poof. I have never had such a crazy reading experience, and I think the plot twists especially, you had to stop reading. And this book is very angsty, it's sophisticated, and the one-liners will kill you off. The feels are something else in this story because the chemistry that everyone has with each other is out of this world. Book number 3 is See How They Run by Ali Carter, and this is a sequel to All Fall Down in the Embassy Row series. Please ignore this cover. This book completely took my breath away. It follows the children of embassy workers, so all the country's ambassadors that live on the same road, and we follow Grace, who for all of her life has been told that she is crazy because she believes that this scarred man murdered her mum. Now, alongside that, we have so many different plot points to do with this fictional country. We delve into politics and mysteries and murders, and there's a lot of mental health in it as well. Grace herself has a lot of panic attacks, and the way that the characters all support her is so great to read about because most books kind of gloss over these kinds of topics. It's such a dark series. I mean, when everything starts unraveling, and especially in this book, this is my favorite in the series, the twists. just take it to a whole new level, and I wasn't expecting this series to turn into such a menacing series because the covers look pretty mundane, and I'm so glad I carried on with the series despite not loving book 1 because it was so worth it. Book number 4 is Jackpot by Nick Stone. This is my favourite contemporary of all time. I don't even know if anything will top this. Now, this book follows a girl who works at a local gas station, and she believes that she sells a multi-million-dollar winning lottery ticket, and in order to find the person that she believes she sold it to, she enlists the help of a classmate. But of course they don't really like each other. He's this very popular guy at school and, you know, very contrasting personalities. The massive plot twists at the end made me want to throw the book out of the window, and I cannot even put into words what a shock it was for me. The plot is definitely secondary to this book because for me the interactions that the characters were having were much more important, and this book has so many great lessons about class and money, and it does delve into discrimination. And the plot itself is a little bit crazy and it's very fast paced in that respect. It's also a very funny book. The comedic relief in between the very moving parts of the book was so perfectly timed, and I am so obsessed with Nick's writing. The next book, you're all going to laugh because I've talked about this series so many times on my channel, but this is also kind of the book that inspired this video, and that is Tarnish City by Vic James. This is a sequel. I think this video is all about sequels being kick-ass because we have another one. This is a sequel to Gilded Cage, and it follows the aristocracy of Britain. And they have magical abilities, and they hold that superiority over the rest of the population by making them give up 10 years of their life in their service. It's a very topical series. It definitely delves a lot into class and the 1%, and it also has that fantasy element. Now, the biggest selling point of this series are the characters. They're all so intricate, and they all have ulterior motives that you don't quite know whether these people are the heroes or the villains, and that has been my favourite part of the reading experience, and the betrayals are something else. I was screaming, and as you can see, there's a lot of tabs here. It's such a thrilling series, and I think if you enjoy political intrigue and fantasy, but it's very modern. The next book is Two Can Keep a Secret by Karen McManus. Lord almighty, this is the most creepy, eerie book that has the best punchline in all of literature for me, because you're reading this book, you think it's over, and then you're thrown a bombshell that just makes you question your whole life. This is about a small town that keeps losing its homecoming queens. There are 2 murders that are still unsolved, and the killer appears to be coming back. This book has such an interesting take on this very cliche small town kind of known for its murders kind of trope. The way everything unravels and the way that you think you can trust all these characters and you're led astray so many times, it was just everything. This book, out of any other book on my shelf, is one that I wish I could read for the first time again. Karen has a very good way of ending books in a very unexpected way. The next book is one of my favourite vampire novels of all time, and that is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. I was so shocked by this book because I think vampire fiction has reached a little bit of an impasse in that they're very repetitive, but this book is just something else. It's set in New Orleans in the 1800s, and we follow Celine, who's had to escape her life in Paris. So she's in this very new atmospheric gothic city, and she becomes entangled with this group called the Court of Lions. This book repels tropes. Even halfway through, you think you're reading about a particular situation. Now, the biggest criticism that I've seen for this book is that it doesn't have enough vampires in it, because even though you know they exist in this world, there isn't much explanation about how they fit into this world. But to me, that was intentional, because you are reading from Celine's point of view, who has just entered this new city. There's a serial killer on the loose. You're focused on the mystery in this one. The sequel, however, expands the whole world. Now, the sequel isn't out yet. It's publishing on the 7th of July, but I have already read it. The way that you are taught about this world, it's in so much detail. It is much more apparent to the reader in The Damned, which is the sequel, exactly how the vampires and all the other supernatural creatures fit into New Orleans at this time. This also has a very unique concept because the villains especially, you have little snippets from the serial killer's perspective. It's creepy reading about their intentions and what they're doing. Now, the next book I don't have a physical copy of because I read it as an audiobook, and that is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. You will recognize this from a very recent video because it has become the new fantasy obsession. Now, this book, very similar to The Beautiful, repels tropes. This is marketed as enemies to lovers, but let me tell you, I've never seen enemies to lovers done this way. And I don't even personally think that it really is enemies to lovers. In this story, our two characters both want to murder each other for different reasons. You have Karina the princess, who's meddling in dark magic, and she needs a heart. And then you have Malik, who makes a deal with a spirit. This is such an atmospheric book because it's inspired by West African folklore, so you can imagine the legends and the myths that are weaved into this. You needed to take breaks after each plot twist and really process what the hell you just read, because it sneaks up on you. You don't expect this book to turn such a dark corner. Up until even halfway through the book, you think you're being led in a very obvious direction. You think, okay, please don't let it be so stereotypical. And it just runs away from that word so hard. For book number 9, we have King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. Follows this fantasy world in which people have two types of blood. If you have silver blood, you have special abilities, and if you have red blood, you're one of the commoners. Our main protagonist, Mare, she is a red blood, however she does have abilities. So what the royal family do is they take her in and they tell the world that she is a lost long silver princess, and that's why she has abilities, because they kind of want to keep her close to prevent her from causing havoc. The one word to describe this entire series is betrayals. I cannot even begin to tell you the direction that this book took. Ruined all of my dreams pretty much. The most surprising thing to me is that I gave the first 2 books quite mediocre ratings, because while I did love the characters and I adored reading about this world, they just didn't shock me as much as I expected. I am so glad I kept reading because this book was something else. I was left speechless after reading this novel. I'm so late to the party because I haven't even finished Warstorm yet, which is the final book. It's such a wide cast, and sort of similar to Gilded Cage, they have a lot of ulterior motives, many of them, and it's very thrilling to read. Now, for the final book, I wanted to include a whole series because for this series, I genuinely cannot pick the one book that could have stuck out to me, and that is Shatter Me by Tara Maffey. This series is one of the quite old YAs. It has a very interesting concept and also a very unique writing style. There's a lot of crossing out of the thoughts of the protagonist, which kind of makes it very chaotic, and you feel like you're in a very messy character's head. And you have Juliet, who has the power to kill with her touch. So she has been imprisoned in this place for a year now. She hasn't even seen another human being, so she's very isolated. And one day she is sort of retrieved from the facility. This was the first time in a series, I think, if I recall correctly, that I had an experience reading about a very morally ambiguous love interest. I'm not going to say who it is. And it was the first time that I sort of saw this very damaged character have a redemption arc done very, very well. Oh, there's so much political intrigue, and you have the angsty scenes to break up all of the political and military aspects of the book. Now, I haven't read the reboot of this series because quite recently the series picked up again and carried on the story. I don't want to taint my image of the series, so I don't think I will be reading it. Maybe someday. I'm not going to say no, definitely. So those are the 10 books that I think will blow your mind. I had such an experience reading all of these, so I hope you have found some good recommendations to check out. Let me know what your favourite plot twist books are, so do leave me some recommendations below as well. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!